Alright guys, I said I'd make another video if I cleared 140, so we just cleared a 140, and we're also going to talk about the next season that's coming, and what I think is going to, I think this build's actually going to be pretty good next season, and I'll tell you why, along with, I'll kind of walk through some of the stuff I'm doing if you haven't watched previous videos. This is a flurry Heartseeker hybrid build, um, so I think it's going to be pretty good. Alright, so next season, like Victimize is supposedly getting a nerf, right? Like that's what people have been talking about, and a lot of people have been throwing out the 50% nerf kind of thing, regardless of what they're doing. If they're preventing the double dipping or whatever, just assume that it's going to deal 50% less damage, which isn't actually that big of a deal. Remember, there's like some crazy OP items coming out that are going to up your damage significantly, like the Shard of Arathil, right? That's like a 300% primary damage increase, along with being able to imbue your basic attacks, right? So I mean, you can just assume that if your primary attack is doing 400% more damage, and you know, they nerf Victimize by half, you're still going to be doing more damage than you are now with Victimize. So I'm pretty hopeful for the changes that are coming. And then there's still close quarters combat and stuff, and there's like precision maybe with pin shot. There's a lot of different stuff, but I don't think they're gonna neuter Victimize that hard. Like I said, I think that 50% thing is probably accurate. So I think this build's actually gonna be really good for next season and for clearing, right? Because we have flurry, and flurry enables you to never, like, you don't have to have attack speed on any of your gear if you don't want it. You can have like 20%, I think, and then that brings you to the cap, because accelerating aspect that will actually stack outside of that cap, and then that the rapid aspect, that's basic attack speed, so that caps outside there. But basically, with flurry, you don't need to actually stack any attack speed on your gear. So those slots that you would normally put attack speed, you can put damage or whatever you prefer. You do need a little bit more crit than if you're running the focus or whatever. That gives you that infinite energy. And we'll see how things play out, because right, energy is going to kind of be a thing, because the Shard of Arathil is going to consume some energy, but I think we can manage it, because the Crown of Lucian, it looks like that's 75% resource reduction, but then it also stacks it. Like, it's going to be a little bit of experimentation to figure out the build right when the season comes out. But I think I think this is actually going to be really good. And remember, we're going to have starless skies, so that's going to give us that reduction to our energy. I think we're going to be able to figure some really cool stuff out, and it'll be fun to experiment. And so I'll get into fighting these guys and some high-end pits and what you want to look for. Obviously, the tile set has to be right. The snakes are pretty bad. I mean, I can clear some with the snake. The snakes are just, they have a lot of CC. They're kind of a pain in the ass. But if you get the right tiles and the right guys grouped up, then it can be a lot easier on you. And of course, the boss at the end is kind of the deal breaker. Some of those bosses are just too tough to take out for the Heartseeker build. And I know there's a pen shot build, and it's clearing higher, but the pen shot build is really not good for farming, right? Like a Heartseeker build can speed farm. This build can speed farm like 120s, no problem, in like 3 minutes. And so, I know there's not any reward past really 101s, and that's clear, but they can clear 101s in a minute and a half or whatever. So it's just a really good overall build. And then I think next season it's going to get better, and there's going to be more opportunity to change weird things. Remember, Flurry's kind of getting a little change where it's going to either dash or teleport you to the target. You're going to have you're going to have the chest piece or whatever that can, or maybe it's an imprint, I can't remember, but it can pull targets. So that's going to be really OP, and that's going to make, maybe there'll be like you can, instead of this, we can stack some attack speed and run a pen shot with it instead of flurry, because pen shot really is good for taking out groups of ads and does a lot of damage if you can get a bunch of dudes grouped up. So looking at pen shot too, there's a lot of stuff to look at. But these guys, like you want to, when you're clearing these high-end pits, you want to try to prioritize those elites that have the nasty affixes on them, like those pillar dudes. They can just wipe you out. There's certain guys you really want to watch out for and try to prioritize. And you also want to kind of think about pulling as something, because things aggro from the edge of the screen, and if there's a wall there, they kind of won't aggro. And there's those nullifiers that make everything take less damage. You want to try to prioritize those, or just, if you can, try to line of sight them off your group you're trying to kill. You know, just try to always be smart about the pulls and what you're doing. Those guys that have the extra health, they're not technically, like, I guess they are elites, but they don't have the affixes, those nasty affixes that can mess you up real bad. Those guys give you actually a lot of progress towards that bar, and it seems like that bar, it's just like the amount of health of whatever you killed is, goes into that bar, the completion bar. So yeah, those sometimes you can find a group of those extra health guys, and there's like 5 or 6 of them there. There's no actual like elite elites, and you can wipe those guys out relatively easy, and they give you a lot of progress towards that bar. And so yeah, it's kind of sucks because it does a lot of this requires RNG, and I know this game is just, it seems like everything's based on RNG. You got lucky hit builds, and you got your crit chance, and you got the whole tempering system, which is absolute dog shit in my opinion. It could where I'm still running a really bad bow. It's got 1 GA on it. I just can't make a bow. I've bricked billions and billions of gold worth of bows, and it just doesn't work for me. I can never make one. So I pretty much have given up on trying to gear up anymore this season and just pushing with what I can, which my gear is pretty good now. It's been improving. It could definitely be a lot better, but like I said, I'm not. I got in the season a little bit late, and then messed around with the Sork, and then didn't get to the Rogue. So uh, definitely hit the ground running next season and get some videos out that are gonna be a little better on, more focused towards the Rogue. That's my favorite class. So like and subscribe if I'll be popping out some early content the next season in my findings. We'll see how it goes. I think that we'll be able to find something really OP early on and see what's going to happen. So also, you know, when you're using that flurry, I'm actually using the version of the flurry that spreads vulnerable because I'm not using blast trappers. Now blast trappers is really good. I've dropped all utility aspects just to deal the maximum amount of damage here, and because they're just, yeah, everything's so tough. And again, I've talked about the double dipping. That's probably going away. We'll see. And so you kind of want to think about, the elements thing. It can double dip. The intercom can I am running Edge Masters too. That doesn't double dip. But trying to get as much damage out of this as possible. So running the flurry that spreads vulnerable to everything that gets hit is really, really important here, because even though you have all this lucky hit chance and you have the chance to make vulnerable on everything, the whole entire group is not going to be vulnerable. So you definitely want to use that flurry that makes everything vulnerable, so that ensures that it spreads everywhere. And I think that's changing next season too, so we'll have to make some adjustments and stuff, but that's what I'm running here, and it does work very, very good. And you kind of forego that roll through them and stun them, that's really good on staggering the boss. But yeah, you can kind of see here that I saw some little damage reduction guys from those nullifiers down there, so I went higher on the screen and then didn't try to pull those elites right where they were. I made them come to me, so that way those nullifiers don't come into the fight and mess it all up, because there's some pretty nasty affixes on some of these elites right here. And especially like the fire guys that launch the flames out of them. You don't want those guys. You gotta watch the triple shot dudes. If they're the certain kind of ad, those things will mess you up really, really bad. And so we actually just completely avoided those nullifiers, and now we're heading to the boss. And so we got the Scourge of Land, which this is actually a pretty decent boss because he does spawn ads. He's not really that deadly. He doesn't have anything that's like super crazy. You got to get kind of lucky with the torments too. I mean, I don't know. The torments, yeah, there's some torments that are kind of a pain in the butt. And the only one that I don't really like is this guy actually right here that spawns, because a lot of times, yeah, he knocks you away, and so your intercom gets canceled, and that does suck. But you get to the boss in time, you should have enough time to take him out. And like I said with the ads, previous videos, like you kind of want to try to keep them around, and it's hard because Heartseeker bounces around. But we are running Cheap Shot, and Cheap Shot gives us extra damage for everything that's around us that's CC'd, and it also gives Heartseeker something else to victimize, and we can kind of get some compounding damage when those ads come out. And so this guy's actually a pretty decent boss to take out. Him, Malice, Spirit Caller, those are all kind of ideal bosses. The Spirit Caller, really, really weak actually. The Spirit Caller is the ideal boss that you always want. He's got one attack that you gotta watch out for, but it's pretty easy to avoid. So the build that I'm using and everything will be and all my gear exactly how it is right now will be in a max roll build in the description. So you guys can check that out if you want. And like I said, I think it will be actually pretty viable next season. Obviously, there's going to be some imprint switching and some different uniques coming in. And so, yeah, be sure to stay tuned, and I'll make sure that when the season drops, I'll be getting up there and dropping another build, a revised build of this, and what I think is going to be the best, as soon as humanly possible. Um, yeah. So I think that the Umber Crux is kind of like, I don't know, meh. I know that it's people are saying it's going to be super OP, but honestly, I'm not too convinced because it does take up one of your slots. It's going to take up one of your weapon slots. And you are still going to probably want duration on your caltrops, even though they're kind of fixing the whole, it stacks up to like 100% or whatever. It's still going to be good because you're going to want to be able to keep that maximum. It caps at 45%. You're going to want to keep that maximum 45% damage on them. So you're still going to want duration. And so if you're running the Umbercrux, you're not going to be able to run duration on it, right? You're going to be able to just get your bow and then have your Heartseeker cast twice on there, and then that would be it. So I think that I think we're going to be foregoing the Umbercrux with the next season, unless it's like super broken or something like that, which I guess we'll find out. Make sure that next season drops, you're I would Diablo trade .com. I mean, that thing is it's so good for buying and selling items, even if they're not the billion dollar item, ticket items that you're trying to just get a bunch of gold all at once. Like, people are going to be gearing up, and so you can be selling, you know, just single GAs if they're really good, and just try to also be smart about what you're getting, and if you're getting those. Well, let's see what the tempering system is, if they're going to make these changes. But a lot of times when I was gearing up, I got these triple GA items that were worth 10, 15 billion gold or whatever, and I was running a bunch of other crap. All my other gear was like single GA or maybe not even a GA, and then I would try to temper that one piece, and that was going to upgrade my build like pretty decently, and I would brick it, and it's like, oh shit. So think about that if you do like get a really good piece early on. I mean, make your own decisions there, but I'm probably going to be doing like the thing where I'm going to sell that big ticket item if I hit it early, even though it would be an upgrade for my build, to upgrade 3 or 4 other pieces, and so that way you're ensuring that you get an upgrade on your gear rather than playing the gambling system, which I think, like I said before, I think that's a really bad system. I think that obviously has to be there. I just think that in some cases it's just too hard. Like the bows, you got to try to get Heartseeker cast twice and then vulnerable damage, and it's a 1 in 4 and a 1 in 5 chance. It's just so hard to do, and then you have to actually hit a high enough Heartseeker roll on that too to be worth it as well. So it's incredibly difficult, and you can just be bricking items all day, and it's not really that fun when you work up a bunch of gold and then just takes you a week to work it up, and then you brick it in 15 seconds. So hopefully they actually address that and fix that. I know we're getting more chances, but yeah, a reset with a Resplendent Spark would be really cool. Something like that. Let's hope that they're listening to the community and make those changes. So also, even for next season, I've said this in my previous videos, a very good way to test out your builds isn't the dummies, it's actually picking a pit level that's somewhat challenging for you, not too challenging, so you can still be farming. Something that you don't dump to that boss instantly. Maybe it takes you, 1 or 2 stun phases to kill him, and then you can start to gauge each boss and how fast you kill them. Yeah, it's how fast you're clearing those things. So that way, you can figure out what's working best for you. That's the end. Thanks for watching, guys.